Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new here, welcome. My name is Shakira, and if this is the first time that we are meeting, hi. As you may be able to tell from the title of this video, I wanted to share my testimony from New Age spirituality and how I was able to rebuild my connection with Jesus and with God. I'm 25 years old, and I just think that this is such an important topic for people my age to be hearing, especially in the Western world, because society has just become so godless. And I truly believe in my heart that the more people who share their testimonies and share their real life experiences, the more others will be able to open their eyes to the reality that is having a relationship with Christ. Because I think that in movies, in media, and just again in society, a lot of people have an incorrect perception about what it means to be a Christian, or what it means to follow and obey the laws of God. So, where do I start? I'll start with just before the breakdown that led me into having this breakthrough. I was an extremely anxious person. Always anxious, always worried, always preoccupied in the future, always wondering where my life was going to be in 5, 10, 15, even the next 1 year. And I think that this could stem from my family background, which in my close family are extremely anxious people as well. And I think that this could have rubbed off on me from the time I was a very young girl. So that anxiety soon led to me constantly believing or thinking that I had or would soon contract like some kind of serious ailment or disease, like thinking I was going to get sick or thinking that I was sick. I would always think that I would be contracting some type of serious ailment in the near future, in the time to come, despite my otherwise not perfect, but good diet and lifestyle. I would constantly talk to my boyfriend and tell him like if something were hurting me on my side right here, I'd be like, this feels so weird right here, like I don't know what it could be. And then I would go and Google the symptom that I'm having. And then of course, Google University students would know this, but Google's gonna tell you all of the possible things that could be wrong with you, right? And so that's constantly what I did. That was how I had to learn about things that could possibly be wrong with me. Maybe a year ago, last year, there came a point where I just became so anxious and so overwhelmed with everything that was going on in my life. Within the last couple of years, I've had a few different jobs. Let's just say that. Between work, my relationship, things that were going on with my immediate family, things within myself, just had this deep down feeling of regret for things that I had done, both related and unrelated to family, relationships, work, all of that kind of stuff, right? So I had like this deep like pit in my stomach. Like it would come up and I would end up expressing to myself, like just talking to myself, you're so this, you're so that, and then start talking down on myself. And my self-esteem at that point was, I don't want to say non-existent, but definitely not at a healthy level. So this began to manifest in a lot of ways in my life. think that maybe those internal battles that I was facing obviously affected the way that I brought myself out and the way that I showed myself to the world, which then could have played a role in those other things that I was saying, like my family, my relationship, that kind of stuff. I would remember that I would cry myself to sleep very many nights and just lay in bed wondering, staying up until like 2, 3, sometimes 4 in the morning. Yeah, of course, there would be times that I would use my phone to distract myself, and that would probably cause me to stay up even later. But just so many times, I just remember just laying in bed and staring at the ceiling. My boyfriend maybe had been falling asleep for hours already. So I just kept wondering, like, why am I feeling like this? Why do these sensations keep coming up? Even though I was well immersed in the world of spirituality. I knew so much about law of attraction. How come I was still feeling deep down like unsatisfied with something? But with law of attraction, I can manifest my reality, right? So why is this the reality that I'm manifesting? Even though I'm saying the affirmations every day, even though I'm doing the meditation challenges, even though I'm journaling every single day, writing down, the things that I want to accomplish. What is the missing link here? Like I thought I was doing everything right. And this journey into the occult began in college, maybe a little bit just before college. Because I do remember having it wasn't a strong relationship, but it definitely wasn't a non-existent relationship with God. Like from a child into middle school, into the beginning of high school. Because when I was a kid, I would go to church on Sundays with my best friend that was 2 doors down. So like I would go with her family to church. So I do think it was really important in planting the seed of God in my life. And my family background is from my mom's side Christian, and then from my dad's side I believe Catholic, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe that was just my dad because he was trying to justify drinking. Yeah, I believe my dad was Catholic, and then my mom's side, and more specifically my grandmother, played a really big role and had an influence in my life for a relationship with God. Even if the way that I was growing up and around me, my perception was that I should be scared of God because if I do something wrong, then I'm going to be punished. And that was the kind of perception that I had around it. But I do remember my grandmother from my mom's side, and she was the one who primarily took care of me and my 2 brothers when we were growing up because my mom was working a lot and my dad was too. But I remember my grandma would always tell us like, Dios es lindo, and that means God is so beautiful. Of my idea of success and fulfillment, I would definitely say that my grandmother and her mother, my great-grandmother, who is still alive to this day, praise God. But because of them, I was able to see all of the good things that can come in life. And not materialistic things, but those inner good things. I was able to experience that my grandma, like she always has this sense of peace about her, and she's always willing to help others and serve others, being selfless. And my family from Dominican Republic, like this is in my grandma's city, the entire town knows her. And they know that if they need food or anything, like even though I'm not saying my family had a lot, because they really didn't. And the town where they come from, like it's not one of the bigger cities. or it wasn't before. It is growing now, but the point being, my family didn't have a lot, but I was still able to see that good example of a woman who obeys God, and at the end of her life, or towards the end of her life, have that sense of fulfillment that everybody so desperately seeks, but can somehow never find. But I do think that having those influences in my life played a very important role. So when I was a young kid, up to the end of middle school, I could describe myself as like a goody two-shoes. I always listened to the rules. I mean, granted, I listened to the rules enough and made relationships with the people that mattered so that I could break the rules later on. But like, it was never in a bad way. Like, I never cussed. I don't think I said my first curse word until I was like, I don't know, I think a freshman in college, in high school. But like, I didn't curse. I always told my parents if something bad was happening, or like if my brothers did something bad. Granted, I did do bad things too as a kid and like fight with my brothers, but like if I knew something was bad, I was a snitch and I would go and tattletale. That's just to give you an idea of the kind of goody two-shoes that I was. I never did anything, like I was always against drugs. I always said I would never do that. And even in high school, I went my entire high school as well, like doing the same thing. In middle school, I'm not gonna say I stayed away from boys, but I never had sex, anything like that. Now going into high school, that was a little bit of a different story, and we are gonna be getting into that in just a moment.
I had to change locations really quick. No worries though. It honestly might be better in my car, but where I left off was talking about how I was a goody two-shoes. And yeah, so I always did the right thing, or what I knew in my heart to be right. I never did drugs, never had sex. I was completely against like those two things. But going into high school, that was when different events in my life started happening. And you can say these events, the beginning of the downward spiral, and we are going to be getting into that in just a little bit, but from about maybe this time last year, like once I actually fully gave my heart to the Word of God, that was when I started to experience like the biggest shift in my life that I had ever experienced, even in doing all of the New Age practices. And in just a matter of months, I've experienced day and night difference in my overall sense of fulfillment and content for life. My wisdom has skyrocketed. Questions that I once had about what to do for max fulfillment, I now have a clear picture and a clear answer for. And the answer for that is to serve. Serve primarily God, serve my family, serve my husband or future husband, my household, and my community. These are things that I've always done my entire life. It was only once I started to become more self-centered and becoming in denial of the fact that a loving God exists that downward spiral started to happen. I didn't understand the meaning of love. I mean, I did when I was a kid. When I was a kid, there was a point in time where I saw what I thought was love. My parents, who seemed happy together, they stuck by one another for years. I remember there was a lot of different things that we had gone through together as a family. My mom, my dad, me and my two brothers. We did it all together, and they also complemented each other for a long time. Now, due to reasons, my parents ended up getting divorced, and it was from that point that like my life completely changed from one day to the next, even despite the fact that these changes really happened over the course of months. It just felt like from one day to the next, things just flipped up completely upside down. Not only did my relationship with my biological dad diminish and dwindle, like at that point when they were getting divorced, but this also happened at a very crucial point when I was entering into high school. So from that point, I intentionally went out searching for something to fill a hole that I had in my heart. A piece of me always felt like something was missing, or that when I achieve X, then I can chill. As a woman, that specific frame of mind is completely outside of my nature. As a woman, my body is designed in such a way that I need to rest. Not that I want to, but I need to rest every single month. Coincidence? I don't think so. Was I just a young, broken girl, mad at the world because of all of the things that were happening in my own inner world? Probably. So, I looked for things outside of God to try and fill that hole. This includes like my first experiences with boyfriends and relationships. Later on, eventually drugs. Holding resentment in my heart. Wanting to seek out revenge to get back or get even with people. So when that young girl grew, all I could think about was what I could do to stay far away from that feeling of emptiness again. And that, like I said, if God loved me, one of his children, I wouldn't have gone through all of those things that I did. My parents wouldn't have divorced each other. My family dynamic wouldn't have completely switched and changed. So my solution for that was self-love. Right? Because if I wasn't getting love from the outside world, from the places where I needed it, who better to give it to me than myself? And that was the outlook that I had. And that's what eventually led me down to this path. Self-love, myself, if I wasn't happy, do whatever to get myself to that state. Although I'm learning that life is a roller coaster of these emotions that we experience. Love, joy, pain, sadness, grief, and so on. It should never just be a do whatever you need to be happy. As you go into this world of like new age and that kind of stuff, the line between right and wrong blurs, and then at that point there is no right or wrong. So it's like, just do whatever you need to do so that you can reach self-love. Right? Wrong. So I ended up getting drawn into the world of the higher self, the world of mysticism and spirituality, crystals, tarot card readings, hallucinogens, and magic, and spells, and chakras, and mantras, and false gods, and goddesses, and I am God too. It was all about me, my reality, and my truth, when in fact there's only one reality that we're all living in, and there's only one truth. There can't be multiple truths out there. There can't even be two truths. Unless you're playing two truths and a lie. No, but in the grand scheme of things, there is only one truth, and everything that is outside of that is false. And the truth is that there is only one God. Just like there's only one truth. So, at that point, I ended up getting deep into psychedelics, and the world of mushrooms, acid, DMT, ayahuasca. And at that point, that was like where I felt like my mind was truly becoming opened, and I was becoming enlightened about, you know, what's actually out there for us to experience. I thought I was ascending into my higher self through these practices, through gaining a deeper understanding of these things, which are really practices that Satan uses to deceive us into thinking that it's something good. But Satan, the way that he works, he is the king of deception. Satan is the ultimate deceiver. And he was put here on earth to roam about the earth. So Satan creeps and lurks everywhere, and he uses people when they're their most vulnerable to show them a light, like a light, right? He tries to show us a way out. But that way out is completely derailing us from the path that God, that Christ has set for us, right? And the way that he works, he disguises lies within the truth. He can tell you 9 truths and put 1 lie in there that is going to deceive you and make you be like, oh, okay, so it's really not bad if I sit and chant these mantras, even though these mantras are actually opening portals. So it's actually okay because we're channeling God through doing this, right? No, that's how Satan deceives us and leads us into doing things that we shouldn't be doing for our own good. Not that we shouldn't do them just to like say we shouldn't do them. No, you can't do that, or you know, you're gonna suffer forever. No, it's not like that. There are things that we should or shouldn't do for a reason. So I probably wouldn't even be able to tell you my first experience with mushrooms or acid. I do remember a very specific experience though, and this was with ayahuasca, but I'll get into that. And guys, these drugs that I'm talking about, they're not the same like the hardcore drugs like methamphetamines and cocaine, like heroin, crack, all of that kind of stuff. Oh, crack cocaine is kind of the same thing. Not really, but these are a completely different group, right? And they're designed to help us expand our minds, right? And to explore our minds and the power of the mind. And I think that this is also where Satan uses these things. And it's really easy to say that they're okay because sometimes they come from the earth, like mushrooms. But Satan still uses these things to get us into believing that we can do it all with our minds. There may be some truth to that to an extent, but I think that the core foundation in psychedelic use, like self-centered instead of God-centered. So I did drugs a lot. And it became like an almost weekly occurrence. There was a point where it became like every weekend or every couple of weekends or every few weekends we would have literal acid party. But my very specific experience with ayahuasca, which like the main active compound in ayahuasca is dimethyltryptamine or DMT, which is actually naturally occurring in our brains, and the levels are highest when we're born and highest when we die. But our body naturally releases some levels of DMT throughout the day. It's taking either DMT itself, which you smoke it, or ayahuasca is prepared like a tea, and it combines a vine and a leaf, both found in the Amazon but far, far away from each other, and you drink it. It's really small, like a Dixie cup size amount that you would take. And I remember doing this in a group. It was a large group because you cannot legally do ayahuasca or find it for that matter, because like I said, it's found in the Amazon. So you have to go to specific places. And so I was with a large group of people and with a boyfriend at that time. And we all got in a circle. Everybody, shared why they were there, what their intentions were, what they hoped to get out of it. And it was a huge ceremonial type of deal. There was a whole ritual that you have to do beforehand, and it involved using fire. We all sat in a circle. In a sense, we prayed over the ayahuasca, and there's this part, they got a whole bunch of sage, they put it in a pile, and then when you blow the sage out, like the embers, there's a lot of smoke. So we're supposed to cover ourselves. They put a sheet over us, and each person individually will take a moment to be covered while the smoke is clearing their negative energy. And now looking back on it, I'm just wow, these were a lot of excessive rituals that we had to do in order to have this experience. Now, knowing God, you don't need to do all of these fancy things to experience God or to experience a revelation, something profound. You don't need all of these things. So yeah, we had that ceremony, and there was a I'm forgetting what the word is, but a shaman. There was a shaman there, and he talked to everybody too. It kind of sounded like Spanish, but this was after we all covered ourselves with the smoke, right? We got in a line, and he looked and scanned everybody individually, and he would say, after reading your energy, he would either chant something or talk to you, depending on whatever it is that you needed. But he was saying something to me like confianza, 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 which in Spanish means confidence or trust. I'm not entirely sure why. I don't know if it was that at that point he maybe thought that I wasn't going to be receptive, or he thought that I was doubtful of what we were about to do, or if at that time, because when I was experiencing all of that I had explained, at that downward spiral, where I just felt really low confidence and looking towards external things to bring me internal fulfillment. But regardless, the ayahuasca experience in itself was really deep. I did 2 nights of it, and each trip lasts from, I believe, 8 to 12 hours. I remember we were going into late morning and still feeling the effects, and we took it the night before, maybe around 9 or 10 p.m. There were some people that literally looked like they were getting possessed. There was one person who was almost completely unconscious and began how they describe it is purging. And when you take ayahuasca, you get these feelings of purging either through your mouth or through your bowels or through your tears or laughter. It's different for everybody. It depends on what that person's going through at that time, like what they're feeling inside. But this guy was like completely unconscious and started like vomiting all over himself. And we were like, is he okay? They gave us very specific instructions not to touch anybody, not to make physical contact with anybody, unless it was, you know, one of the facilitators, one of the people that were just like walking around making sure that everybody was okay. But they gave us very specific instructions not to touch anybody. And I remember there was a point where my now ex, he came close to me because I was like shaking uncontrollably. I was like, it didn't feel like it to me, but he said that it looked like I was just vibrating. My entire body was vibrating and I wouldn't stop. So he came over to try and like hug me or something, and I just remember like this weird feeling come over me. It was like a pressure almost. But like he came to me and I slapped him out of the way. I was like, move, don't touch me. I still don't know how to explain it to this point. What they explained is that your energies are very sensitive at this time. But what I'm starting to believe is like once you take the ayahuasca, it could be like certain demons or spirits that come over that person, dependent on, like I said, what they're experiencing at that time. That had came over him, came over me, I don't know. And then like getting that physical contact is like, it was really weird. I have no idea how to explain it, so I'm just not going to. There were also some people who had so intense of an experience that they left the following morning. They didn't stay to do the second part, or they said like it was the worst nightmare, the worst type of like terror that they had ever experienced. The first night I was more focused on my relationships with the women in my life, being a woman, and how that affects my relationships. So me as a sister, me as a daughter, me as a girlfriend or future wife, or me as a friend to other both female and male friends. And then the second night, the focus was on myself and just what do I need to do. I didn't have like super negative experiences with ayahuasca, so I was like, okay, it wasn't that bad. And they say like ayahuasca, because the active chemical in it is DMT, and DMT is basically like the top level of psychedelics. I was like, oh, this is not that bad. So I was like curious to the idea of actually smoking DMT, but thank God I never did. Who knows what kind of stories would have came out of that. I no longer have that curiosity. And I think it's for good reason. So after taking ayahuasca, it was after that point that I was like regularly taking acid, mushrooms. Like we would take mushrooms and like go out at night, go like walking through golf courses, walking through parks and stuff. And so all of those experiences were overall pleasant for me. So I was like, there's nothing bad about this. There was, however, one experience that I remember. It wasn't my own trip. It was that of this partner that I had described at that time, who I believe they took 2 tabs of LSD one night when we were supposed to be going out. Like we had to go to a party city for something, for like some wristbands, because we liked to sneak into either clubs, concerts, that kind of stuff. It started to kick in when we were leaving a party city, and then we were gonna go to whatever place we were going to. And they started acting like really weird. Like saying, I need to go home, I need to go home, I need to go home. I'm like, okay. I thought we were just, all excited to go out. But they were persistent on saying that we needed to go home. I think number one scariest experience that I had with this, and thank God I did not take anything that night, because who knows how much worse this would have gotten. But he, at that time, he was like, it only got worse. And acid is something that it lasts a long time. He started freaking out. He thought he was a demon. He thought I was a demon. He thought there were demons present. He was telling me to grab a knife from the kitchen and come and kill him. And where we were at that time, that was his apartment, and he had roommates, but everybody was out. So it was just us. And he was over here telling me to kill him and that he doesn't deserve to live, and saying I don't want to be here. He thought I was his mom who had passed away. He thought his mom was trying to speak to him through me in some kind of way. And I had never met his mother. So this was just like an overall very scary experience. And I had never dealt with anything like that before, so I had no idea how to maneuver the situation or how to calm him down. I tried to do my best, but I couldn't really touch him. What I was doing wasn't helping, and if anything made it worse. But like, he just kept saying to kill him and to kill him and to kill him. I called our friends and they were all out. This was during college, so everybody was out partying, having a good time. I'm calling them, telling them, yo, so-and-so is having a terrible trip right now, and I have no idea what to do. I'm like freaking out on the phone. I'm like, I need you guys to come here. Like, I don't know what to do. He's telling me this, he's telling me that. They were like, okay, yeah, we'll be there soon. They ended up getting there like way later, and by that time that they actually got home, he was already like calming down a little bit. So I ended up telling him what he said. He was like, did I really say that? I said all of those things. So like, right now I'm dissecting this as he was possessed by some type of demonic entity. And that's yeah. So that's like just a fraction of the kinds of things that you can open yourself up to by taking psychedelics. There was another time later, much later after this point, maybe years after this point. Later that night, she was holding something in, like she didn't want to tell anybody. We ended up peer pressuring her to say what it was, and she was like, I know why everything is so messed up. I'm supposed to be with Shakira and our boyfriends at that time, and they're supposed to be together. And I was just watching more testimony videos, and a person explained that demons can possess us, especially when we're in these vulnerable states on psychedelics, into doing or saying these things that lead us to sin. And so if I were on board with her and what she was saying at that time, or when she said that, everyone kind of just was like, what? And she was like, yeah, we're supposed to be together and the two guys are supposed to be together. Okay, I think maybe we should take a little break. So what this guy was saying was like, demons can take over us when we're in these states and trick us into saying these things that go against God. So it helped me connect the dots to that moment. And that specific person had explained how these demons took over his friend into getting them to do homosexual things together. Eventually he caved. So it just goes to show how weak the spirit can be when God is not present. That was just a little bit about my experience with psychedelics, and man, I could have an hour-long conversation just about psychedelics, but because of everything that I had explained, I've made a lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes. I've lied. I've cheated. I've stolen things. I've hurt people that I really care about. People that were once or still are very important to me, which to this day I deeply regret, and I just want to say that I am truly sorry. So one recent day I woke up from the delusion. I realized that my problems never actually went away, no matter how many meditations or drugs I did. They persisted like the scammers that persist in my text messages saying that my address is incorrect and my parcel cannot be delivered and that they need my bank information. And I was still making mistakes constantly, and hurting people constantly, even though I was following the rules of the New Age, right? I was following all of the rules of spirituality. And the anxiety also didn't discriminate. Every day I felt worried or anxious about things that either were or weren't in my control. I cried myself to sleep many nights, just looking for something to fill the hole, something to fill that void that the drugs didn't do, the meditations didn't do, all of the self-help, the personal development that I was doing, the friends that I had, friend groups. Nothing was filling that void. Now, as I've gotten older, I've been able to realize that God will continue to repeat situations in our lives until we learn how to break free from the habits that are keeping us repeating that cycle. There was just so much that I did. I got really deep into trying to learn more about the occult, to learn like if I need to use spells. I learned the difference between white and black magic, and I was like, and black magic is supposedly the bad one, but white magic is the good one, right? That's what you use to bring good into the world. Even the devil can disguise himself as an angel of light specifically. This is in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 14, that says, Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. And this means that Satan capitalizes on our love of the light in order to deceive us. I'm reading from a website now. He wants us to think that he is good, truthful, loving, and powerful. All of the things that God is. To portray himself as a dark, devilish being with horns wouldn't be appealing to very many people. Most people are not drawn to darkness. They're drawn to light. So Satan appears as a creature of light to draw us to him and his lies. Darkness and light are metaphors for evil and good. If anyone sees an angel of light, it will automatically seem to be a good thing. For the correlation of evil with darkness and of good with light is a powerful archetype in human history. In the Bible, light is a spiritual metaphor for truth and God's unchanging nature. And this is in James 1:17. It is repeatedly used in the Bible to help us understand that God is wholly good and truthful in 1 John 1:5. When we are in the light, we are with him. 1 Peter 2:9. He exhorts us to join him in the light. 1 John chapter 1 verse 7. For giving us light was his purpose. John chapter 12 verse 46. Light is the place where love dwells and is comfortable. 1 John chapter 2 verse 9 through 10. God has created light. Genesis chapter 1 verse 3. Dwells in the light. Timothy chapter 6 verse 16. and puts the light in human hearts so that we can see and know him and understand truth. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 6. Satan, who was put on the earth to rule over the earth, uses the free will that God gave humans. Remember, he gave Adam and Eve free will. God never intended for us to be on this earth and to suffer, but he did give us free will, because if he didn't, then that wouldn't truly be a loving God. I've come to understand that God created earth, but all of the suffering that happens on earth was a result of humans. Ultimately, because God loves us, he gave us free will to decide what we do. Right? There's right and wrong. We have options because God loves us. It's only through allowing the Word of God to come into your heart that you'll know which is the right option and which is not. So you have to let God's Word into your life to be able to discern the difference. And the best way to let his Word into your life is to read it or to listen to it. Not by listening to me, not by listening to anybody else here on YouTube, but it's to go and do the searching for yourself. So fast forward by a few years, and I am at the place where I am now. All of the people who I had mentioned before, except for maybe one, are not really present in my life at this time. So where I am now, when I moved in, I was still deeply involved in the whole New Age stuff. And so I would constantly have debates with my, at that time, roommate, my now boyfriend. We would have debates about religion and New Age, and this just left me with questions that I needed answers for. How can I explain to him that he's dead wrong, or at the very minimum, extremely biased, because he also comes from a Christian background? So I'm like, dude, this also goes back to what I was saying earlier about, like, there's not just one right or wrong. There's not just one God out there. There's not just one truth. There's a lot of different ways that people experience life and come to realize and know God or their religion. You know, it's all based on their experience, and that doesn't mean that anything is wrong or right. So how do I explain to him that he's wrong? You know, it's funny, like the New Age stuff is so funny because it always says there's no wrong or right, but only to benefit, you know, the person saying it, right? There's no wrong or right, but you're wrong about Jesus being the Son of God and being the human incarnation of God to come and save us, you know? So there was a little bit of hypocrisy there, and it's very prevalent among society. I'd always been somebody who was willing to learn more, willing to get down to the root cause of things. While searching for these answers with an open mind, I became more and more curious to the Word of God. As all of these years had gone by, and I'd never actually fully read the Bible. So I was making all of these assumptions and saying all of these things that the Bible was incorrect, or that people just used religion as a form to control the mass populations. And to an extent, there's some truth in that. But again, the devil uses lies buried within truth to deceive us. And you can see that even within the churches. Churches who say that they are serving God, but they're really serving the love of money or the love of self. So once I started becoming curious to the Word of God was when I actually started to look into the Bible. And it started with like Googling things like, oh, what does the Bible say about this? What does the Bible say about this? It wasn't so much like me opening up the Bible and starting from the very first page. But like it started with like just Googling questions, searching for questions, and like then finding a place that I could expand off of from there. Once my boyfriend and I actually became a couple, we started having more conversations with his family, and I was able to speak more and like ask more questions to his dad specifically. He had been like studying the Bible and debating people in different religions since he was a kid. So I started asking him some questions and like trying to find other places that I should refer to, or he would encourage us to read the Word of God or to listen to the Word of God. That was when I actually started to do so. And I was never really a big reader, and that could probably be why I've never like had the inclination to pick up a Bible, because I've never had the inclination really to pick up a book. So I started listening to the Bible instead on YouTube. Eventually, I just got more curious, and I started to see answers for questions that I had about other experiences and how to handle them. Not answers to the specific questions that I was asking in that moment, maybe, but questions that I had been asking myself for years before. How should I be as a woman? That was something I had gone from that point before, my entire life not knowing how to do, and consequently had some effects on my life, my relationships. And I think that because of that also, I've had a lot of experiences that I regret, experiences that I wish I would have known these things as a young girl, because I probably would have stayed away from relationships, but I would have been more inclined to stay away from having sex entirely. I didn't understand the importance of sex as a woman and how you become tied to all of your sexual partners in some way, shape, or form. Until God frees you from those soul ties, they really play a role, and they take a toll on you, your overall sense of wholeness, your overall sense of well-being. And I wish that somebody would have actually like sat me down to tell me these things and help me understand it and help me see it, as opposed to just saying like, don't have sex is bad, stay away from, you know what I'm saying? Like, as a kid, when you're told don't do this, don't touch this, what do? Like, you just want to do it even more. But nobody actually took the time to like sit down and explain to me the actual repercussions that could happen in your life. Had I known them, I think things would have been, I know things would have been entirely different, but I still have full trust and confidence in God that the things that happened in my life needed to happen. And if they didn't, then I wouldn't be right here sharing this. So my curiosity blossomed from my once stone cold heart being reopened. After so many experiences and cycles repeating themselves in relationships, I'm just like, I almost became numb to the idea of love, numb to the idea of that somebody actually does exist out there who wants to treat me how I should be treated, who will be that leader, who will be a good person to like actually have a family with. And that's another thing, like, I think that if these values were instilled in me from earlier, I would have also understood how to actually pick a good man. And that would have saved me so much trouble So once my curiosity blossomed, I began searching for answers that I have about everyday life, and I found them. The Bible says, "Ask and you shall receive, seek and it shall be made known to you." These different sects of New Age spirituality and Christianity, they take pieces of the Bible, right? And they string truth all within a lie. But the truth can't be diluted. If the truth is diluted even 1%, it's not the truth. The truth has to be 100%. Otherwise, it's not the truth. So I began searching for answers about my purpose and why I'm here, and I found them. I began searching for answers about the future, and I found them. My anxiety dissipated. I go to sleep easy at night. Granted, yeah, there are times where maybe I have like a stressful day, and so that affects my sleep schedule, but for the most part, like, when I go to sleep, I go to sleep. And I'm so happy to say that. I'm not staying up worried anymore, because I have full confidence in my heart that the difficult situations that I go through and like the problems that present themselves in my life, those things aren't going to go away. Let me just say that. Let me just be clear. Problems don't go away in our life once we give our lives to Christ, but once we do that, you just have like you get this peace about you, because you're like, it's okay. So my anxiety stopped. It stopped. I was gonna say it stopped keeping me up at night, but it stopped completely. Something I can use to show for this is this watch, mostly to track the time, of course, but it also tells me like my steps, my heart rate. Before, my heart rate would never be below like 89 resting. And if I was walking or something, 120 easily. I read it now and like I jump for joy, and I show my boyfriend, I'm like, babe, it's at 75. And 75 is so much better. So it's like, I don't know, I start to see these things physically happening in my body, and I'm like, wow, so I was doing this to myself. It's all about the self, right? So I was bringing this torment basically onto myself. Before, I would constantly feel like there was a weight on my chest. Like it was hard for me to physically breathe. I could never take full, deep breaths. And now, even though my physical body still aches sometimes, especially because I haven't been stretching, I breathe without nearly as much difficulty. And I make it a point, since I even noticed the like my high heart rate, I made it a point to every once in a while take slow, conscious, deep breaths. Even when doing that before, like it was hard to. In my, like, as I was writing this, I said, as I write this, I notice it being even easier. So I'm just left in awe at how quickly things begin to work when you let God in. I just want to emphasize again that doesn't mean that your problems go away. But with God, it's a lot easier to get through them. And I give all of the glory to God. So do I know all of the answers about who or why or what will or how or when or where in my life? No. And it's not my job to know that. I learned what love means and that this is the foundation. Love doesn't force anything. It's not selfish. Love is giving something away to see if it will come back by its own will. Love is forgiving because it's unconditional. And God's love for us does all of these things. Anything that is not these things is not God's love. So I've finally been able to find a thing that fills the void. And now I feel more complete than I ever have in all of the ways that I could have ever imagined. I had and still do have a lot of work to do, don't get me wrong, but all of the glory for this work that's in my life and all of the work that is going to be done, I have to give the glory to God. Man, I feel relieved. I feel like a whole new person. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. Like, I'm the same person. I have all of the same experiences. I have my memories. My memory's not that great, but the memories I do have, those didn't change. I hope that through what I did say, I was able to relate to at least one person. If I can help one person see that what they're experiencing, they're not alone, and to help that person see that there is a way that you can find what you're looking for. There is a way to reach that fulfillment that you're so desperately searching for. And it's not going to be through a career. It's not going to be through a relationship, a worldly relationship. It's not going to be through having a bunch of things or having a bunch of money. It's so much better than all of those things. And you can go to sleep at night feeling peace and knowing that God is with you through all of the hardships that we face in our life. So, wow, I'd never thought that I'd be one of, these people saying God loves you, but He really does, and I love you too, and I just hope that His word can touch you and that you get to experience Him in some way like I did, because it's truly amazing. So yeah, thank you so much. If you've watched this all the way through, thank you so much. I really do hope that this was able to resonate with you in some way. There's a lot of stuff that I did leave out, and just like through memory, like I said, my memory is not the greatest, but feel free to subscribe to my channel and come along for the journey with me. So, if you like this video, please leave a thumbs up, comment, share this video with your friends. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you. I appreciate life. And all of the glory goes to God. Deuces.